Hello, welcome to this overview on the PriceLinks plan takeoff software. So we currently have a small plan open here. If we need to import another plan, we just select import PDF, or there's an option for a non-PDF as well. And then we can either accept the name that comes with the plan or rename it. Once it's imported, we then need to calibrate the plan. We can either do this automatically by setting the size and scale if we know them and they are correct and accurate. If they are not correct or we don't know them, then we can manually calibrate the plan by selecting a horizontal and a vertical measurement that are known to us and measuring them off, and then we can calibrate the plan that way. So the next thing we might want to do, if this was a real life instance, then it would be to set up more than one section. I've just got a section in there called demo, but realistically you would probably have a power plan, a fire alarm plan, and a lighting plan. A couple of reasons for that. One, it will just make the plans simpler to read. It won't get too cluttered with too many markings. And secondly, if you have the estimating software, then you'll probably want to put different sections in so that you can just pull in a section into each section on the estimating. So if I move on to the takeoff, and we'll just go around and show you a couple of different ways of picking items up. So it's just a very simple domestic property. If we assume it's a bit of a rewire, just to give you an idea of how it works. So we go to our database and collect some cable to start with. So if I go, so I've already got some cable in there. So if I pick up some 2.5 cable, and it puts the meterage cost in time at the top here. And then we want to use the path tool for this. I'll just select a color. So perhaps if I put this one in it navy. And then to use the path tool, all we need to do is to select where we want to start. If we assume we're running through the ceiling here, we can go along there, across the room, back down the wall, and we'll stop at those. And then when I right click, you see the quantity comes up at the side there. Description, unit cost and time for the item. You can either have this sidebar open or closed. If you want to see more of the plan, then you can close that down and see more of the plan, but I'll leave it open so you can see the items being added as we go around. I'll just select a different color for the next item. So if I change that to red so we can see what we're doing, and I'll use the count option this time. So if I select count in there, and then if we assume we want some surface switch sockets in there, and this time I use an assembly. If you're not familiar with our software, if you don't use the estimating software, then an assembly is simply a group of items you might want to select together. So rather than going around a number of times for each item, you can just collect it all at once. So here what we're saying is for every socket outlet I want a back box and a couple of screws and fixings. So I'll just double click to select that, pops it up the top there, and then all I need to do is to go around and just drop them on the plan. You notice on the right now it's counting them individually. That's simply for the purpose of the plan. We might want to delete something, so it makes it easier to delete if they're all on there. But for the purpose of reporting, then all these quantities will get consolidated for you. So it would just say a dozen switch sockets, not list them a dozen times. That's one type of assembly. I'll show you another type of assembly now. I'll just change this color here, say to fuchsia. Right, so if we assume we want to go down the wall now with some conduit to get to those switch sockets, and this time I'll pick up a trunking run. So now what we're saying with our assembly is for every metre of trunking, I want a third of a length of trunking, assuming it comes in 3 metre lengths, which this one does. Normally, if you were doing a long run, say 100 metres, you'd want some couplers. So we've also got a third of a coupler per length in there. I'm going to set those to 0 because we're only coming down the wall and the ceiling's not that high, so we won't need any couplers. And I want a couple of fixings as well while I'm at it. The other thing I think I will do with this one is, if I'm coming down the wall, I probably want to go back up, won't I? So I'm going to double up on my cable. So we'll change that to 2, and then I'll select that there. And then the only thing I will need to do here is, I've not said what the length is that we need to multiply it all up by. So we're probably going to come down the wall just over 2.5 meters, but I'm going to put 3 meters in there because it's a 3 meter length of trunking, and I'm not going to put joins in on as I come down each one on the wall. It just look messy. So I'm going to use 3 meters anyway, and I'll probably want a little bit of extra cable for my tail. So I've set that at 3, and now if I just go around and I can drop those on the plan, and you can see adding those up. Another thing to mention is, if you want to add something to the database, if there's something which isn't on there you need to add, then you can select a new item and you can just populate the fields for the database, and then if we add that, it will add it to the database and also pop it at the top here so that we can put items in. If you don't want to use database items, there's a further option. So if I select the settings and then that just pull this in from the side, we can select not to use a database, and then that clears this down and allows us free format to put some description in there, cost and time, and we can use it that way with non-database items as well. So that's generally adding items to the takeoff. If you have estimating software, you'll probably want to import all this. So if I just switch over, I've got the estimating program open. It's in a takeoff sheet, and I've set up an empty demo section here, so there's nothing in there at the moment. Just select plan there, and it was the demo one we want. There's all our items, so we can select individual items if we want. Normally, as I say, you'd have a number of sections, so you'd select your section from in there. And these by default will be consolidated, but you can uncheck that if you don't want them consolidated. There's a few additional options in there. I just want to select everything rather than pick off individual items. And when I select OK, that will then drop the items into the estimate. So you can see there's the dozen switch sockets I entered, there's the cable where we ran around on the path item, and there was the trunking, the total amount. If I select the items, then you can see the individual items. So just on our switch socket there, for instance, there's our switch socket, the 4 items at the top: plugs, screws, boxes, and outlets, dozen of each, 24 for those. So you can display those as groups or items, but that's the estimating, which we're not really looking at here. Let's go back to the plan takeoff. Let's just show you to import it into the estimating. So if you don't have our estimating software, you probably want to get a report on that. So if we go to the reports option, we can select all plans in all sections, or the selected plan that's up at the current moment, all sections, or selected plan and a selected section if you have lots of items in there. So if I just select the report for the takeoff list, then here you can see we've got a dozen switch sockets, cable in there, and the trunking run. So that shows cost and time for everything. There is an option to show just the costs without the time, or just the time without the costs. That's our takeoff one. The other item, or the other option you might want if you want to send something off to your supplier to get a price, is the takeoff list. So if I run that report on the takeoff list, this time it just gives you a consolidated list of materials. So here are all the materials that we've taken off with their quantities consolidated there, the costs and the time there. And similarly, if you don't want to show costs and times, then you can just get a straightforward quantity list and send that off to your wholesaler. But the reports can be used in a number of different ways, however you want to use them. If you want to get a printout of the plan, you can, or you could get it in PDF format. There's a settings option here that shows where you send in your report to. So we've just seen it go to by default to the screen, but you can send it to a printer or file or email it off if you've got an email client. And then if you were going to the file option, for instance, PDF is a default, but there are a couple of other options. So that's a brief overview of the plan takeoff. If you want more details or get hold of the costs, please go to our website, pricelinks.co.uk, and you'll find more details there. Thank you very much for your time.